Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Conservative is Cool Talk Radio. This is your host, Wayne Bradley. Thank you for joining me today on the Fix Michigan Monday show. We got a few guests on the show this evening, and I'm really looking forward to tonight's show. We're going to do a little recap on some of the election results from last week. So I'm looking forward to that. I have Saul Anuzis on here, and we're going to talk a lot about the election results. I'm going to have Ezra-Bracha Drissman, who is running for county commissioner in Oakland County, and I'll give you his district soon. And also we're going to have Rocky on, who actually won the 9th district primary vote last week. I'll be replaying an interview that I recently had with him. So it's going to be an interesting show tonight. I want to congratulate Rick Snyder also for winning the gubernatorial primary for the Republican Party. It's going to be a very, very interesting debate going on between him and Verge Bonero. I think you have two contrasting leadership styles and obviously very different visions of Michigan. So it'll be very interesting to hear the debate and see what these different candidates are going to have to offer Michigan. So without any further ado, I want to bring on a gentleman, again, who's running for he's out of Oak Park. He's running for the Oakland County Commission, and right now the commission is split 12-12, and with one Republican passing away last month, so this is a very important race. And so, without further ado, I'm going to bring on Ezra. Ezra, welcome to the show.
How are you, Wayne?
All right, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. Part of my vision of doing Fix Michigan Mondays is to talk to candidates throughout the state that have different visions on what they can do to help improve the state. And through our emails, through one of the correspondence, you said something else that also struck me. Obviously, it said that I'm running for Oakland County Commission to change the way the Jewish community votes. I believe our community far too long has voted liberal because we often vote with our hearts. It's something I can definitely relate to a lot. Ezra, welcome to the show.
Sure, thank you. I mean, listen, I grew up, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and my wife and my little girl live in Oak Park. And one of the things that always struck me growing up was a lot of the Jewish community. I mean, you don't have to look very far, and the statistics will show you that I think 70-80% of the Jewish community always votes Democrat, and is really because of what they feel is in their heart rather than what they know is probably better for the larger community as a whole is to vote more Republican and more conservative. So I'm running to try and shake it up a little bit and trying to change people's minds and talk with them one-on-one, and it's, slowly but surely making a difference.
Right. Now, that issue alone with me is near and dear to my heart as being an African-American conservative. I'm running against some of the same battles. What do you, I guess that question, and we'll get to more about the campaign soon, why do you think that the Jewish community has voted so biasly with the Democratic Party when sometimes, obviously, some of the policies actually conflict?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of it started with probably FDR, with a lot of my parents and grandparents, and it grew into this weird sort of thing where they felt that the policies of the Medicaid and all of these programs that were meant to, I guess, help people ended up, that was their main goal. Their main goal was to help people, which is noble, but really the road with what it's paved, it didn't lead to anything good. And I think it became their banner to fight for the little people, and that's where it led them down the road of liberalism. And I think it worked against them. And many times the liberal community is so anti whatever we believe that they can't look past those policies, and they all think that they're still doing good. And so yeah, it's I definitely hear you on that. It's frustrating, and sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall, but I think it's changing. I think it's definitely changing with listen, the more left that the Democrats go, the tougher it becomes for, I think, the Jewish community and certainly the black community as well, that's affected by the policies negatively.
Right. I agree. As further left they go, people are going to start moving to the center. What made you decide, can you give people listening a little bit more of your background, and what made you decide to run for the commission position, Oakland County Commission?
Sure. I grew up in Farmington Hills. I'm one of 5 children, and my parents, since I was a little kid, always had the television on and said, "Listen, this is what we believe." And my parents were always very conservative-minded. We were always more or less religious, and my grandfather was a veteran of World War II and earned his Purple Heart when a building fell on him in the Pacific. So we're no strangers to the not only the beauty of what America holds, but also that we don't shy away from fighting for it either.
Right.
And so my background has always been really a love of this country, and that's one of the reasons why when I went to and graduated from Wayne State, I graduated with a degree in public affairs, which is really a degree in politics. So I public services is always been a fascinating thing to me, because really public service is gotten a bad rap a lot of times, where people look at it and they're like, oh, just another politician.
Right.
But it shouldn't be like that. And politicians have to understand that they're spending other people's money. And I'm going into it not only with that, but I'm going into it with a family and a whole bunch of rabbis who, if I ever get out of line, will be the first ones to have me on their speed dial and say, time out, Ezra. What's going on? And I think that grounding and that love and my business background is that I run websites and I know how to market anything on the internet. And in the 21st century, I think that's what will be important, that is important over the next 10, 20 years, especially in the public.
Right.
So I bring that, and I really, it's my passion to the, I'd like to bring it to the commission. It's the 22nd district.
Okay.
And that's my background in a nutshell.
Right. I think it's very interesting. You have a career, you do websites, and I've noticed you involved with the green business.
I am. I fell into it. Listen, I've always, I think protecting the environment is an issue that cuts across party lines.
Right.
And I think a lot of times Democrats have really taken the banner of environmentalism to the point where Republicans shy away from saying, hey, listen, you know what? We care about the environment.
Right.
So my business background is I run a couple of different websites that deal with green jobs, green technology, and healthy living, which I think fit hand in hand with what Republicans want. We don't, obviously we want our children to grow up healthy. We just don't want necessarily the government to mandate what they define as healthy.
Right.
So I think they fit hand in hand.
All right. Well, yeah, I must admit that's a very different, not the typical stereotype of the Republican Party of someone. So that's definitely unique. We actually have a gubernatorial candidate that was endorsed by some conservation groups. That's never happened before. So maybe we're seeing some new ideas being brought to the table. What did you think about the nomination for governor?
You know what? Listen, I think growing up in Michigan, Michigan is a very moderate state. We're a moderate to slightly conservative on a good day state. Where I think Rick Snyder can can do very well, and the fact that he cuts across party lines so well is a good thing. I am actually looking forward to I personally I'm hopeful that Rick comes to Oak Park and he meets all the Jewish community, because I think he has an opportunity to really get a large percentage of not only the Orthodox Jewish vote, but I think he has a big chance of getting the conservative and reform vote, who I think can connect with him and with his policies. And I really, I hope if you have a chance, you can tell him he's always invited into Oak Park.
Hopefully I can get him on the show again real soon. I'm looking forward to that. Getting to your campaign here, what do you see, where are you identifying with government right now, in particular in Oakland County? Where are they misspending the money, and what can you do to help maintain that AAA bond rating?
Well, I think as far as mismanaging, I don't know that there isn't so much that L. Brooks Patterson hasn't done. I think L. Brooks has a team of all-stars that he has surrounded himself by. And really the main concern on Oakland County, they actually just switched this past year to a 3-year rolling budget, which means we are, I believe, the only county in the nation that has their books balanced until 2013. The state of Michigan can't brag about that. And I think what my candidacy brings is not only that fiscal responsibility, but it also brings the opportunity where I can use my expertise in marketing and using the internet to market Oakland County to not only the larger Michigan, but to really the entire world and how much we have to offer. When Minnesota brags about all of their lakes, they forget that Michigan has just as many.
Right.
And we can market to all over the world, but I think we can do a better job and bring more revenue into the county by using and utilizing the internet, which we haven't been doing as well. And I think that point, that's something I don't think that any Republican or Democrat can do. And we're also really trying to keep Oakland County in Republican hands, because some of the Democratic opponents, and my opponent has been in favor of the mass transit systems, which cost $1 billion just to lay the track. And I don't know about you, but we have a budget. Our 2010 budget was a little over $800 million. So I'm not really sure where that extra money that Democrats want to spend on, but I intend to bring whatever. Listen, I don't like to spend money, and I certainly I intend to bring that to Oakland County, where listen, we're gonna not spend money because people are hurting, and it's my responsibility to keep our books balanced, because we're in for a tough road over the next 3 years, and we're going to work hand in hand with Brooks, which is why he has endorsed me in this race, and we're going to work hand in hand with him to keep our books balanced and keep our AAA bond rating, and that's what we're going to do.
You have a pretty nice, impressive list of endorsements there. Who else endorsed you? I was checking out on the website.
So we have Mike Cox on board. We have virtually all of the Republican county commissioners. Okay. And we also have, I'm very honored to have Mike Bishop endorsed me, as well as I'm officially in Mike Bishop's corner, and I hope he definitely becomes our next state attorney general candidate.
Good. Mike's a good guy. He definitely is. He's a good guy. What's the website so people can go check out the website, and obviously they want to donate and help and want to know more about you? Where they can go find you online?
Absolutely. It is my first name, Ezra, E-Z-R-A, .Drissman, DRISSMAN.com. It's Ezra, ezra-brachadrissman.com. And actually, my opponent in 2008 raised well over $15,000. So we're a little outspent, but we're definitely not outbattled. And listen, even $5 from people helps and goes a long, long way in this election, because we're really about ideals, and a little bit of money will help those ideals go even farther in just the support that we have had, and the ground, the grassroots, and people are excited about this. So it's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, people, if you're listening in, I want you to go and check out Ezra's website. Give him the website one more time, Ezra, because I really appreciate you coming on here today, and we need people like yourself who are looking at it from a fiscal responsibility of getting government back on track. Give them the website address one more time, Ezra.
Absolutely. It is ezra.drissman, DRISSMAN.com. And really, I encourage everyone to go to the website, and if you have any questions, I'm available probably later than I should, and my wife sometimes gets a little mad at me, but you know what? She is a wonderful supporter, and really we look forward to bringing our ideals to the county.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what, Ezra, it sounds like you have a good plan. Again, this is what people want to hear is from the people, so I really do appreciate you coming on the show today, and we'll be following you all the way up until November. Good luck with the campaign. I definitely want to have you come on again so we can talk more in depth about the whole relationship between the Republican Party and the members of the Jewish community as well as the African American community. So I'm already letting you know I hope you can come back on the show again, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule coming on the show tonight.
Oh, absolutely, Wayne. Anytime, and I'll definitely be on again, and I'll give you regular updates, and we'll see what we can do about getting the Jewish and Black communities to think the way we do.
I appreciate it. All right, well, Ezra, thanks again, and again, we'll follow up with your campaign. Good luck out there, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wayne.
All right, have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye. Thanks again for Ezra for coming on the show this evening. Again, he's running for the county commission spot in Oakland County. Along Oak Park, Southfield. He's relying on people to support him. So I hope you go to his website, ezra-brachadrissman.com, and do some research on him. But again, we're looking for fiscal conservatives, people that are looking to keep an eye on the wasteful government spending. Obviously, his goals are to maintain the AAA bond rating, maintain the balanced budget, and obviously use technology through the internet to better improve Oakland County. So, again, Ezra sounds like a good candidate, and I would encourage people to check that out because we need all types of different voices and different ideas to help fix Michigan. It's going to take more than just one person. Again, we were talking a little bit about Rick Snyder in his race, and again, that's the one thing I must give him props on is the fact that he has successfully reached into places on both sides of the aisle to get people to vote for him. I was in the barbershop, different places over the last couple of weeks, and I just heard people kept saying they were going to vote for Rick Snyder. These are people that Democrats, and I'm just listening like, wow, okay. I knew at the time, I realized then he is really hitting the streets, and then to find out he's actually been campaigning in Detroit, I really commend that because I think, again, that's something that the GOP is going to have to look at, in particular in Michigan and other areas also, about the way they are handling the urban markets and the way they're campaigning. And it looks like Rick Snyder is going to be one of the pioneers, I guess, or someone that's willing to go outside the box and, hit the neighborhoods, go places that, again, in particular, Republican candidates have strayed away from. So kudos for that. I want to say that everyone else ran very good campaigns. We should, one way or another, the GOP is looking very strong here in Michigan. And I think I got my second guest coming on the show right now. He's my first ever guest on Fix Michigan Mondays, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Caller, you're on the air.
Good morning. This is Saul Anuzis.
Saul, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All right. Thanks again for joining me this evening. I was just letting people know you were my first guest ever on Fix Michigan Mondays, so I appreciate you for coming back on the show tonight.
Well, it's good to have to be back, and I'm glad you still have me on, Wayne.
Hey, a lot's changed. I think things have changed since the first interview that I had you on. You're now the current Republican National Committeeman from Michigan. Congratulations. I never got to congratulate you personally, but I mean that changed since the last time we talked on the air.
Yes, that has. It was a great opportunity. Obviously, Keith Butler resigned kind of midway through his term, and he had other commitments that he couldn't really fulfill his job, so the vacancy occurred, and I was elected at a special election during one of our state committee meetings. So I'm very excited to serve there now. Right.
And what do you do with that position? What is one of your primary functions?
Well, the National Committee is made up of the state chairman from every state and then a national committee man and committee woman. These are volunteer positions, one male, one female elected for a 4-year term that serves from convention to convention. And basically, we represent the state of Michigan on the National Committee. So there are traditionally 2 meetings a year, 4 meetings a cycle. They're held in different parts of the country. This last one just last week, where we passed the presidential rules, was held in Kansas City. The next one coming up in January will be held in Washington, D.C. But, primarily we set the rules and procedures for the Republican National Committee. We pick the location for the next convention for the presidential, which was done this year. We, make any rules changes, propose any rules changes, and then obviously raise the money and implement the national Get Out the Vote program on behalf of Republicans nationwide.
Right. What did you think last week? Let's get into some of the fun here. What did you think of last week's gubernatorial results?
Well, I think it was, a tough-fought race with some very good candidates running. We had a very large field, relatively speaking, some very prominent Republicans that all had careers and bases and, kind of platforms of their own. I think Rick Schneider pulled out with a very impressive victory. He did a good job of taking his message, I think, to the voters of Michigan. He also, early on, which was, I thought, somewhat risky, but obviously worked very well, went out and appealed to independents and Democrats. Right. And I think that, now he's kind of emerged as our nominee. And I think that, as we get ready to go into the convention here at the end of August, the party will rally behind him. And I think it's a pretty darn good bet that we're going to be calling him Governor Rick Schneider here sooner rather than later.
Right. Now, you were saying it was somewhat of a calculated risk. He avoided a lot of the debates. He didn't go after any of the I would consider conservative endorsements. Do you think that he's going to kind of round back around here now that we're going into the general election? Because essentially he kind of let all the conservative candidates fight amongst each other, and he stayed away from that. Do you think he's going to get back and more involved into that?
Yeah, I think so. I think he realizes that he has to bring, all the Republicans together. I reached out to him and called him and congratulated him. He called me back. I think he is talking to all the candidates. He's talking to conservative activists and Republican activists across the state. And, look, you can't win just with Republican or there's Democrat votes. We have a large percentage of independents in Michigan. Many of them are conservative independent voters. So I think it's very important that he stays consistent on the message. He starts talking about the things that matter to people of Michigan, which is right now the number one issue continues to be jobs, and I think it will be for a long time. And, have a guy like him who's actually created jobs and, is an entrepreneur by trade and a very successful investor to boot. He understands exactly what Michigan needs to turn the state around. So I think I think you're going to see a very broad-based appeal on his part. I think he's going to reach across the aisle. I think he's going to make sure that the conservatives are there as well. And, I look forward to working with him.
Have you heard anything about maybe a possible short list for his lieutenant governor?
Not yet. I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there, obviously. I think people are, talking about some of the different leaders that have emerged in the past. I mean, I've heard Representative Paul Hilligans and Senator Ken Sikkema as two state legislative names. You've heard Congressman Pete Hoekstra and Congressman Thaddeus McCotter on the congressional front, Senator Patty Burkholz and Senator Michelle McManus, two leading women in the legislature. So, that's just 6 of, I think, many names that have been thrown around as potential lieutenant governors, and I'm sure there are others. And so I think that, this is a tough decision for him to make, and I think he has to, take a look at, what he thinks, he needs to bring with him to do the job necessary to help turn Michigan around.
Do you think that would make us make conservatives sleep a little better at night if he took someone like Pete Hoekstra, say Thaddeus McCotter, as a running mate?
Oh, absolutely. I think, both of them have strong conservative records, different types of appeal. One's West Michigan, one's manufacturing, has a good, kind of Reagan Democrat appeal. So I think either one of those would be great. They both have legislative experience, which is something that he doesn't have. So, those are things that he has to take into consideration. But it's a pretty, it's a wide open ball game right now. And I think that, I worked with Dick Posthumus when he had to go through that process, and it's a very long process. And, you want to make sure you put all the cards on the table and give every potential candidate consideration. And, this August convention coming up here on the, 28th, I think it is this Saturday, is going to come a lot, quicker than we think. So there's not a whole lot of time to make that decision.
Right. What do you say to the people? Because I'm sure the Facebook postings and all that. What do you say to those to the most hardcore conservatives that they're to the point where they won't vote for anybody, because they maybe dislike the choice of Rick Snyder? What would you tell them to help them get over that mental hurdle?
Yeah. Look, first of all, I would say politics and elections it's a matter of choice. You're going to choose between 2 candidates. You've got Rick Snyder, who is a common sense conservative, may not have been as conservative as some of the other candidates, but he is the Republican nominee who's running against a very liberal, heavily union-backed, former current mayor of Lansing, Virg Bonero. And I think it is a very clear choice. It's a big contrast. You can have more of the Obama Granholm policies and strategies under Virg Bonero, or you can have somebody who's going to fight for a change. And, you may not feel that Rick Snyder represented you on every single one of the issues that may be important to you as a conservative, but he by no means is a liberal, and he's clearly, if you compare him to Virg Bonero, there's just no comparison. I mean, he is a Republican. He's talking about tax reform. He supports traditional marriage. He opposes abortion. He may not go as far as some people want on some of these issues, but, he's a mainstream guy, and this is also one of the reasons is he's going to have kind of a broader appeal to the independent voter in Michigan, many of which we're going to need to win an election.
Right. I think that, and I guess that's the thing. He's pro-life, but he's the stem cell research. He's for that, and I guess that turns off a lot of the pro-life people. To me, that seems like the biggest issue that he has. I mean, other than that,
but if you compare that to someone like Virg Bonero, who is 100% pro-choice,
right?
So you kind of look. Do you want a slice of do you want at least a slice of the bread, or would you rather say I'm not going to take anything and lose the entire loaf? I mean, we have an opportunity here with somebody who represents and shares, whether it's 90%, 80%, or 70% of your values, versus somebody who represents 0 to maybe 5% if you're lucky. So, could your preference have been somebody else? Maybe, but, look, as conservatives, as part of the center-right coalition, more importantly, we win elections when our coalition wins elections. This is a coalition government. In effect, pro-lifers, pro-gun, Second Amendment folks, fiscal conservatives, libertarians. I mean, you can go across the kind of right conservative spectrum, and a lot of people come from different perspectives. We have to unite when the time comes, and sometimes it'll be an advantage, sometimes it'll be our candidate, sometimes it'll be someone from another coalition. But unless we work together, unless we vote together, we're not going to win an election.
Right. Now, I've noticed Bonero's already started slinging a little mud Do you think that Snyder's going to retaliate? Because, I mean, he pretty much stayed away from that throughout the primary.
No, I think if you listen to what Rick has to say and the kind of campaign he has run and what he wants to run, he's going to stick to the issues. I don't think he's going to let someone else define who he is. I think you're going to see him be a kind of a forward-thinking type of candidate. I mean, you know, I think he's very Michigan-friendly in the sense that he's the kind of candidate that people here like. And I think that you know, there's a lot of challenges out there, and he has to show that he has, you know, the grit and the policies and the ideas and the kind of temperament to make things happen. And, you know, I mean, this is a pretty mean-spirited political guy running against somebody who's, you know, gets things done, whose whole, you know, persona is to, you know, help turn things around and make a difference. So I think it's going to be a very, you know, it's going to be a good contrast in both style and substance. And this is where I think Rick Snyder will shine.
Do you think that that people, I think now people recognize that in Michigan, it doesn't seem like we're very appreciative of the negative campaigning. It seems like in a couple of the campaigns that I watched, that more of the negative stuff came out, that they weren't as successful. Is that maybe in Michigan that we don't appreciate that, say for in another state where that might actually boost people's numbers? In Michigan, it appears to me anyway that people aren't as appreciative of negative campaigning.
Yeah. Well, I think negative campaigning can backfire, and I think that that's happened in the past. And you know, I think Michigan has had a fairly long and tumultuous history. We've gone back and forth. We truly are a swing state that can go either way. We're not red, we're not blue, we're kind of purple. You know, Republicans win in the governor's seat, the U.S. Senate seats, congressional, you know, majorities, legislative majorities, and vice versa. It can flip to the Democrat side. So, you know, negative campaigning kind of works. Otherwise, people wouldn't use it, so it does have an effect. But I think people prefer and like candidates who are willing to stand up and say the right thing and do the right thing.
Right. Do you think that Rick Snyder kind of represents the new Republicans, or a more moderate, I don't like using that word, but a more moderate, broader view of Republicans?
Well, you know, I think he probably represents the broader view. I mean, it's again, we're a center-right coalition. We've got to bring people together, and I think that you know, he's going to be somebody who can very effectively appeal to the center as well as to the conservatives. I mean, kind of like we started this show. I think he has to bring home the base. Right. He has to be consistent with respect to where he stands on the issues. But again, when we compare the two candidates, we're going to have somebody that we agree with basically either 0 or 5% of the time versus someone we probably agree with 90 to 80% of the time. And that's not bad. I mean, there's not too many people I agree 90 to 100% of the time. So getting somebody up in that 80 to 70 standpoint isn't bad at all.
What are some of the other interesting races that we have going on in Michigan right now that people should be paying a lot of attention?
We've got a couple great ones, you know. I mean, this is going to be an exciting year on the congressional front. If you take a look at the 3rd District, the Grand Rapids District, where Vern Ehlers served, the new nominee on the Republican side is the young state representative, Justin Amash, who is a very strong, ardent conservative, one of the legislative leaders in the House. Very sharp guy. This guy's going to be very, very, has a bright future. It's a Republican seat. He should be there for a long time, and I think he will represent kind of that West Michigan conservative district very well. Pete Hoekstra's old district, Bill Huizenga, another young conservative rising star, is the nominee there, and will, again, probably have a very long and illustrious career, I think, representing the people of West Michigan. I'm really excited about him. So, you know, right off the bat, we replaced two kind of, I'll say old guard, don't want to call Pete an old guy. He'll get mad at me next time he's on your show. But, you know, with two younger conservative leaders. So I think that is very exciting. You take a look at the 7th District here, Mark Schauer, who beat Tim Walberg last time around. Tim won the primary and is coming back to challenge Schauer. This is a seat that does flip back and forth. Again, a very competitive seat here in mid-Michigan, and I think Tim's on the right side of the issues. The momentum is there, and so I expect him to have a really good shot there. The other seat, obviously, that everybody's watching is Gary Peters' seat in southern Oakland County, where Rocky Raczkowski won his primary and is going to be challenging one of the kind of wealthier, more well-funded liberal Democrats in the state. So that's a seat that we have a great shot at. And then last but not least, we have Bart Stupek's seat up in the 1st District. As of today, I just actually saw an alert on Facebook that said Dr. Dan Benishek is up by 18 votes over Senator Jason Allen, but right now they're still in a neck-to-neck kind of recount of all the districts, so we don't know who the Republican nominee there is. It's either going to be Senator Jason Allen or Dr. Dan Benishek, but both very strong, two very strong Republican candidates, and that's a seat the Democrats have held for a long time by putting up a conservative, pro-life, pro-gun Democrat. So now all of a sudden Republicans have a great chance of taking it back, and that's very, very exciting.
Didn't he win initially by 1 vote in that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, on election night he was up by 1 vote, and obviously that was too close to call, and all the clerks have been going through their initial recounts right now, and like I said, as of today, it's up by 18 votes and growing, and I think that's we'll get hopefully a little larger spread, so it's kind of a clear election, so we don't have to waste a lot of money and time in that, one way or the other. Again, we want to focus on the Democrats and not be spending money on a recount or messing with one another if we don't have to. So, if the numbers get big enough, both sides will feel comfortable saying, one person or the other won or lost. It's when you're, within 5 votes that everybody says, oh my gosh, it might be worth doing a whole recount again. So let's see how it plays out. But that's a great seat and a great opportunity. Two of the more important seats, I think, that are the nonpartisan seats that we're going to have up that are going to be nominated at our convention are the Supreme Court justices. Justice Robert Young is up for re-election. Will clearly be nominated on the Republican side again. He's been a stalwart conservative, done a great job in the court, very fair guy, very bright guy. Mary Beth Kelly is running for the other seat on the Republican side. There may be even a couple other candidates that emerge, but the 2 Supreme Court seats are very important for us in Michigan. We've been a fairly court-friendly state. The trial lawyers have tried very hard to take over and make it kind of a sue-happy state where everybody can come in here and sue you for anything or raise the cost of doing business, chasing jobs out of here. But it's a very important race for us. Most of the Senate is up, the state Senate, the state House. I think, the Senate looks like it's going to not only keep its majority, but maybe even gain 1 or 2 more seats. And the House is very close to challenging on a majority. I mean, we were down quite a bit, and right now the numbers and the candidates, if you take a look at some of the numbers, where people are coming in, I think we're in great shape to challenge to take the House back. So it could be a great Republican year, in Michigan politics. And I think that will kind of set the stage for moving us into 2012 on the presidential year. And, as we mentioned, we just changed some of the rules here last week for the presidential nominating process, and Michigan hopefully will be front and center again.
Right. Have you, as far as our attorney general candidates, are you personally endorsing anybody, or are you just kind of letting the chips fall where they may right now?
Well, that's actually the only endorsement I made. Bill Schuette, former judge, former congressman, former legislator, is an old friend of mine back from our college days. We were in college Republicans together. So when Bill decided to run early on, I endorsed him. I think he'll be a great attorney general. I know Mike Bishop. Mike Bishop's a great guy. I've worked with him. But, you take a look at Bill Schuette, you take a look at his record, you take a look at, what he's done, the experience he has. I think Bill Schuette is going to make a great attorney general, and he's going to be a strong conservative leader for years and years to come. So I think that's, a very important race for us, and I'm pretty excited about that.
And I guess the other race, and it's kind of slipped under the radar because there's so many other things going on, is the Secretary of State ballot.
Yeah.
We have a lot of good candidates on our side, but they've already picked Jocelyn Benson, who's got a ton of cash already. Who are you looking at as being possibly one of the better candidates for the Secretary?
Well, I think you're right. I think we have a very strong field there. This is one of those kind of we're blessed with a whole bunch of good candidates. I mean, whether it's Michelle McManus from Traverse City, or Ann Norlander from the Calhoun County area, or Ruth Johnson from Oakland County, Cameron Brown down in Hillsdale. I mean, you're talking about some very strong candidates. Paul Scott out in Flint, all of which bring different geographic bases, different political bases to the table here. I think this is one of those things that Republicans are really having a hard time deciding.
Right.
You know, it seems to be a pretty close contest right now. Obviously, we're going to decide that at the state convention, but you know, nobody's willing to say they're up or ahead. I mean, everyone's speculating, but the reality is, I think, you know, all the leading candidates are right there neck and neck, and will probably come down to a convention floor fight, which is also healthy for the process and good for the party.
Okay. Do you think in any kind of way that weakens us a little bit, that they've got someone out front and center already, who they nominated, and we're just kind of like you said, right now they're kind of arguing amongst themselves? Do you think that gives
Not
them
really.
any advantage?
I would argue almost the opposite. I think that we are building a stronger base. I mean, what you really have is 5-6 candidates out there campaigning, you know, statewide, talking about why it's important to have a Republican Secretary of State. All these candidates are visiting Republican, you know, fixed Michigan centers, local county parties, district parties, talking to Rotary clubs and Lions clubs. I mean, this is exactly the kind of grassroots politics that elects, you know, somebody like a Secretary of State. So to me, I think it is an advantage that we have so many candidates out there, you know, spreading a Republican conservative message across the state of Michigan, and I think it'll be good for us.
Okay, excellent. Do you think what's going on in Missouri, where they just voted down that health care, you know, they're going to give them the option to ignore the health care bill? Do you see something like that happening here in Michigan, and how quickly would something like that happen?
Well, you know, we tried a petition drive that didn't quite work, and I'm not sure exactly what we'll be able to accomplish, you know, from a Michigan perspective. You know, the problem is, and I mean, right now we're starting to kind of see some of the, the devil's in the detail. You're talking about thousands of extra IRS agents to implement this bill. You're talking about costs now that are look like they're going to be almost double of what they predicted. People are talking about the cost of this health care proposal may be, you know, completely, out of hand and just put this country further and further into debt. So Obamacare already is becoming a disaster. And we haven't even seen, you know, the good, the bad, or the ugly. It's just, you know, just getting into the details is starting to scare people. So I think you're going to see more and more challenges, both at the Attorney General level, at the legislative level, and the petition level, to try to kind of roll some of this back. And I think that's one of the reasons that congressional races are so close nationwide. I mean, the latest Gallup poll just last week had Republicans up 6 points up on the generic ballot issue, which means, you know, people are starting to look at, you know, kind of a check and balance on the, you know, crazy spending and huge debt that the Democrats are building up. So, I'm cautiously optimistic that Michigan will be able to participate and make sure that we, you know, keep the choice that our consumers currently have. I mean, we do have some of the best health care in America right here in Michigan. We've got some of the leading hospitals, some of the leading research facilities. Most of our citizens do have a choice. They are covered with Medicaid and Medicare, so it's not, you know, a situation where we've got a lot of people who are not covered and would benefit. In fact, we'd probably be one of the losing states in the country under this proposal, and it's pretty frustrating to see what the Democrats and Obama have done here.
Right. Do you think that the way that Rocky, in particular in my district down here, he's linking Peters a lot to the Pelosi Obama administration? Do you think that that's the right way to approach it, or should he be speaking on exactly what he'll do once he gets to Congress to maybe make some of those differences?
Well, I think it's a function of both. I mean, number one, look, you have to draw the contrast. You have to tell people why you are different than a Gary Peters. And I think Rocky is going to be able to offer a very stark contrast. I mean, Rocky is a solid conservative. He's got a military background. He served in the legislature. He knows exactly, where the people of his district stand, where Oakland County stands. And I think that, he's going to be able to go in there and say, look, Gary Peters has basically sold out to Barack Obama. He's sold out to Nancy Pelosi. He's not representing the interest of our district, let alone our state. And it's going to be a good contrast. And I think that, there's nothing wrong with saying no. I laugh at all these, kind of liberal commentators that keep saying, oh, the Republicans just keep saying no. Well, when you're saying no to higher taxes, when you're saying no to more regulation, when you're saying no, to a tax system and an economic system that is going to, put our children and grandchildren into farther and farther into debt, that's the right thing to do. You have to be able and be willing to stand up and say no. And much of what the Founding Fathers actually thought about when they put together the Declaration of Independence and our Constitution were limits on power, limits on what the government could and should do. So in effect, the Founding Fathers were saying no to big government, no to big spending, and yes to the taxpayer and the individual rights. And this is what we need to go back to. Makes sense.
Now you're considered a Washington insider somewhat. You've been all over the place. I keep up with you on Facebook. Where are some of the last? You were coming from a conference this week. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Sure. I was in Kansas City at the Republican National Committee meeting that just ended here Friday. Actually Saturday, but I left Friday afternoon. As I mentioned going in, we passed some new rules for the 2012 presidential process that will affect everybody here in Michigan as well as around the country. The rules basically do three things. One is we moved the start date from January to February, so we wanted to try to get the primaries out of the kind of the holiday seasons. Too many of us were getting direct mail pieces a day after Christmas and campaigning through New Year's, which wasn't a lot of fun, which is time you ought to spend with your families. So the number one thing we did was we moved the start date from January to February for the early states. So I would suspect Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada to be sometime in February, and everybody else to come in March. The second thing we did was basically put those four states that I just mentioned, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, as the exemption states. The Democrats have done the same thing. We're both looking at the same calendar and the same exemption dates so that we're together on that. And then the third big thing we did is that any of the states that go before April 1st, so those that are going in February and March, have to have some form of proportionality in their delegate selection. And what that means is that, you don't have a winner-take-all scenario where somebody, in the first three primaries wraps everything up and then the rest of the country and Republicans and conservatives don't have a chance to kind of vet and listen to our candidates. So, like Michigan has that form of proportionality. We do winner-take-all by congressional district, and then we allow our at-large slate to be proportional. That would qualify, and as an example, last time you had McCain and Romney winning all the congressional districts, but Huckabee got 15% of the at-large votes statewide, so he picked up 2 at-large delegates. So it's designed to basically be more competitive and hopefully let more candidates play in the field. So those are the big changes we made on the presidential front. And the other thing we did is we finalized Tampa, Florida, as the site for the National Convention in 2012. So the next nominating convention, the next national convention will be in Tampa, Florida. The folks from Tampa were there. We did the formal signing, agreed on that. And so those are two of the biggest things traditionally that the Republican National Committee implements in a pre-presidential year. That was done and passed, and so now we've kind of set the stage for doing that. And as you probably know,
that's going to be fun in 2012.
It is going to be fun.
Have you started? I'm sure you talked to a lot of people. Have you started seeing the viable candidates for 2012?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in fact, tomorrow in Michigan, Governor Tim Pawlenty is going to be here. He's doing an event in Southwest Michigan, I think coming through Grand Rapids, and then ending up in Macomb County for their equivalent of their Lincoln Day, Reagan Day dinner in Macomb County tomorrow night. So we'll see Governor Pawlenty in Michigan. He's been here several times. Those of you who were at Mackinac Island last time remember Governor Pawlenty. He did a great job, gave one of the keynote speeches. Very sharp, young, rising star from Minnesota. I think he's a very viable candidate, a very strong, common sense, Midwestern values, conservative type of candidate, someone that most of your listeners would be very comfortable with. Obviously, we still have our kind of a favorite son in the sense of Mitt Romney's out there. I mean, the Michigan family ran last time very aggressively. He's kept a high profile. He's traveled around the country, remains very popular. Again, a solid conservative. Newt Gingrich, a guy I worked for. Newt's exploring it. I've spoken to Newt several times about the possibility of him running, and he and his wife Callista have said that they're going to make their decision hopefully after the New Year. So they're very seriously looking at it. Senator John Thune out of South Dakota, young rising star, leading conservative will be Tom Daschle. A lot of people are talking about potentially Governor Rick Perry out of Texas, Governor Mitch Daniels out of Indiana, Governor Haley Barbour out of Mississippi. I mean, it's almost an embarrassment of riches. We've got some very strong candidates. I'm sure a couple new ones will emerge with the gubernatorial races. So I think we're gonna have some great candidates traveling around the country, and that means there's some great messengers talking about conservative values and Republican values to the voters of Michigan and the rest of the country.
I'm going to ask, and it might get you in a little trouble, are you going to be looking at any possible running for any positions coming up soon? Like, I don't know, RNC chair the next election?
No, I think right now we're going to focus on November and make sure that we do everything that we can to win. I think that nobody knows what the future is going to bring, but the reality is this is going to be a great year for us. 2012 should be a good year for us. We came off two of the toughest election cycles in 2006 and 2008. We're all across the country. We didn't pick up a congressional or a Senate seat. Now, people have seen what's happened with the Democrats, and they've gone too far. They're looking for a change. So I don't think they thought this would be the real Obama effect 2 years later, but it's certainly happening now. Absolutely it is. And the people of America, people are paying attention, and that's the good news. What have you heard? Now, I've been in contact with a couple of different people throughout the state, in particular the Carroll Tea Party. They've been really up in arms about this fake Tea Party that was created here in Michigan. What have you heard about that, and what do you think about it? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Republican Party has been looking into it. Our legal folks have looked at it. Clearly, this was a setup by the Democrats. It was designed to fool the voters and confuse the voters as to, who the conservatives are running for office. I think that, the good news is the Tea Party voters are pretty sophisticated voters. They get it. They pay attention. They care. Unfortunately, some will be fooled who don't pay that close attention, who may just be voting against it. But in general, I feel fairly confident that, conservatives in general, but the Tea Party activists, Republican activists, conservative activists in general are going to be paying attention. They're going to know exactly who they're voting for and why. And I think the Democrats were a little clever by half and are not going to have the effect that they hoped it did. At least I hope not. Okay. All right. Well, so it's always a pleasure having you on the show. I'm sure I will see you at the convention at the end of the month. What's on the agenda coming up in the next couple of weeks for you? Well, I'm actually heading out to Washington tomorrow, and then I'm going to be back next week. We're doing some work on the social media front. With the National Committee is launching a new program online that we'll be announcing. Then on the 21st is the second annual John Galt Freedom conference up in Carroll, Michigan, and I attended last year. It was a great crowd of folks from all over mid-Michigan got together, and it was just kind of an informational conference and nice barbecue and music. So that's going to be at 3 o'clock in downtown Ovid at the old Ovid kind of restaurant bar right downtown there. So if anybody is interested, join us at the John Galt Freedom Festival. And then the following weeks is the state committee meeting. So we're only a couple weeks away here, and lots of Republican activities as we get ready, for November. And if anybody's interested in keeping up with you and your busy schedule following, what's your Twitter address? Well, the Twitter is just at Anuzis, SANUZIS, and obviously I'm also on Facebook with the same name, and then you can follow my blogs on thatsaulfolks.com. And so, still every week we're sending out a newsletter, and if you don't get the newsletter, I post it up on the blog every week, and if you send me a note, I'll be more than happy to email you my newsletter that I put out every Sunday afternoon, and you can just email me at sanuzis@gmail.com. So that's SANUZIS@gmail.com, and we'll get you on the list. All right. Well, Saul, thank you so much for coming on the show. Like I said, I'll see you at the convention, and I'm sure I'll see you at a couple of Michigan State football games this year, too. Absolutely. We'll be there. Stop by for a burger. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks a lot for coming on. You have a good evening. You too. Bye-bye. That was Saul Anuzis. We were talking about the whole climate here in Michigan, some of these exciting races coming up. If people listening in, I want people to go
and check out the different websites. For Rick Snyder in particular, who's running for governor, I encourage you to go check out his website, get some information, really study what he's talking about and where he's focusing on the issues. I want to say congratulations to Justin Amash, too. I agree with Saul. This guy's going to be a star. I hope to have him on the show real soon. He was endorsed by Ron Paul, and I mean he won in the landslide up there. So, Justin, if you're listening, or any of your people are listening, we got to get you on the show and have you come on here and talk about your vision of fixing Michigan. Rocky, we're sorry we couldn't get him on there this week. He told me he had a fundraiser to go to, and after that he had to spend some time with his wife, which I told him I could totally understand and respect. So hopefully next week we'll have him on the show again so we can talk about his vision, talk about the campaign and what we can do moving forward to help obviously get some conservative values back in D.C. So, Rocky, if you're listening or any of his people are listening, I look forward to hopefully having you on again for next week's show. I can't tell you exactly what I'm going to have on the show next week. I'm hoping that we can have our gubernatorial nominee on the show, but we have to confirm those dates. But Dan Tallis, I want to congratulate him over in his district for winning. He's definitely coming back on the show. I'll try to get him on next week to talk about his campaign. Congratulations, Dan. Congratulations to Rudy Hobbs. Even though you're on the other side of the aisle, you're my boy. We go back since we were young, and I'm just really proud to see people in my age group that are stepping up to make a difference. So, Rudy, congratulations. Couldn't get you on the show. You thought I was going to be too rough on you, but hopefully we can have you come on here in the next couple months for you can talk about your vision for fixing Michigan. I'm looking for my first Democrat. I'm hoping somebody can come on here and talk to me. I'm very friendly. If you're a guest on my show, you're considered a guest. So, looking forward to that. And so, again, we got 3 minutes left on the show tonight. The call-in number, if anyone wants to call in real quick and let me know how they're feeling about the campaign here in Michigan with Rick Snyder, or who you're supporting for Secretary of State or the Attorney General. Call-in number is 347-996-3175. I'm going to, like I said, end the show tonight. I want to say that I've been very impressed with the way Rick Snyder has run his campaign. From an ideology standpoint, probably a little different. But overall, he sees the big picture, and I think that's what people have to realize here. For people that are going to say they can't vote for him because of his stance on pro-life, and it's not even really pro-life, it's in stem cell research, what I can understand a lot of people have an issue with that. Again, you're not going to hardly agree with anyone 100% of the time, and I think that's something where we gotta, as voters, we have to look at. I don't know anybody else that I agree with 100% of the time, so we have to, again, look what we're comparing it to. We know Virgil Venero has been sponsored by, endorsed by Planned Parenthood and every other pro-choice group out there, so I think we have to, the choice on that is pretty clear. You're not going to have a perfect candidate, but again, look at what the issues are and how they're dealing with it. Rick Snyder has a proven track record of success. He's obviously a smart man, and he has some ideas that, again, thinking outside the box. And I'm all for that way of thinking and for that way of moving forward here in Michigan. So hopefully we'll have him on the show again next week. He was one of our first gubernatorial candidates that came on the show. I also want to say to Mike Bouchard, Pete Oaktra, and Tom George in particular, you guys should all be commended for running what I would call clean campaigns. There was no negative campaigning on any of those guys' parts, and I want to congratulate them on that. I think that that was the one thing that turned off a lot of voters in the end of some of the negative campaigning. And again, Mike Cox, who was probably at the forefront of that, it was just a different style of campaign. But at the same time, he ran on his principles, and you have to respect that also. So we had some great candidates. I can't lie and say that I hope he doesn't choose possibly Pete Hoekstra as lieutenant governor, but I have confidence that Rick Snyder will make the right decision in sharing his vision on how he can fix Michigan. So thank everyone that's listening. I want to thank Ezra again for coming on the show today. Thanks, Saul. And again, thank everyone that's listening in and supporting the show. You get a chance, go to the website, conservativescool.com. You can look on there for all the new updates, whether it be on the blogging, news of the day, recent polls. I encourage you to go check out the site if you're interested in also helping out and helping the show and helping us promote the show more. Feel free to go to the donate page, donate $5. All donations are appreciated. So thanks again for listening to Conservatives Cool Talk Radio. This is your host, Wayne Bradley, saying good night and God bless you.